If you haven't heard about Anchor, let me tell you, it is the easiest way to make a podcast. Trust me, if I can do it on Anchor, anybody can do it on Anchor. Besides being easy, it's free. There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit the podcast right from either your phone or your computer. And best of all, Anchor will distribute your podcast for you. And you can hear it on Spotify or Apple Podcasts and many, many other platforms. So it is really like one-stop shopping, everything you need to make a podcast in one place. So really, if you're into this and you want to do this, Anchor is the place to go. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
Think of intermittent fasting as a tool, not the answer for everybody.
There's a lot of interest in this intermittent fasting as this new eating pattern. Just go on Amazon and put in intermittent fasting and 2,000 books show up. So there is a lot being written on it and a lot of people are talking about it. But today, let's find out, where does the science stand on intermittent fasting? This is Spot On, a health and wellness podcast for college students, soon-to-be college students, or anyone that knows a college student. Spot On breaks through the latest health and wellness information hijacked from media headlines to provide you with accurate and usable information that is, well, spot on to meet your needs. I am your host, Dr. Joan Salge Blake. I am a nutrition professor at Boston University and the author of the college textbook called Nutrition in You, which is used in colleges across the United States and abroad. Today's Spot On episode is going to be talking about intermittent fasting. You know, I Googled it, and in a nanosecond, 50 million results appeared. So what is going on with intermittent fasting? Let's go on to the streets and find out if folks know what it is and if they are using it.
I've actually done it before. It works, but it hurts.
It's not necessarily something that I would recommend for everybody because I feel like everybody has their own dietary styles.
I don't know how effective it is, honestly.
It seems like kind of an unhealthy attitude towards food.
I would say the better way to go is just, finding the right amount of exercise and matching your eating schedule with your daily schedule and finding a good routine for it rather than going instantly to fasting.
I actually have a few friends that are doing that. I guess it's a lifestyle they choose to do, but I guess the problem is a lot of them, they just say I'll do it, and then after 2 weeks they quit, and then they go back to their normal routines.
I think that a lot of people use it as a way to make them feel healthier about maybe not eating healthy during those periods when they're not fasting.
I feel like it's not healthy. I don't know, I feel like you should just instead of just not eating, you should, eat healthier.
I feel like there are a lot of fads when it comes to eating and how you eat, especially to manage weight. And I honestly don't know if fasting is as effective as other ways of maintaining a healthy weight.
I am so excited to have today on Spot On to talk about this whole thing about intermittent fasting, Dr. James Hill, and he is one of the world's most foremost experts in obesity and weight management. I was lucky enough to be with this man at a conference in Toronto very, very recently, and of course he spoke because everybody loves to hear him. He is the chair of the Department of Nutritional Sciences and the director of Nutrition Obesity Research at the University of Alabama in Birmingham. He was for years at the University of Colorado. He's been a president of not only the American Society of Medicine, but also the Obesity Society. He's published over 600 articles and book chapters. He's actually authored 2 books. He's also co-founder of America on the Move, as a national weight gain prevention initiative that I'm sure we're going to talk more about. But let me just get right to the thing of what makes this man brilliant. And really, the thing that really makes Dr. Jim here brilliant is that he had the foresight to marry a registered dietitian, nutritionist.
Absolutely. I take total credit.
Yeah. And we all know, I mean, all this like bio you sent me, I don't care. She's the key to your success. I mean,
You're very astute, my dear.
yes. Hello. All right. So the smart man with the even smarter wife is an expert on weight management and obesity, and he is going to help us out with what is intermittent fasting and why it's such the rage. So please, Dr. Jim, what is intermittent fasting?
What a great question, Joan. And in fact, there's not one definition of intermittent fasting. What we're trying to do when we suggest the concept of intermittent fasting is extend that period of time during the day when you don't eat. So let's say typically you might go 8 or 9 hours not eating, basically when you sleep. Mm-hmm. And during the other time, it's like fair game. So intermittent fasting is saying let's have some periods where that fasting period is longer. In some cases, it can be a whole day. So alternate day fasting is one thing that's popular, where every now and then you take a day and you don't eat, or you eat maybe up to 500 calories. There are so many variations in this. So a typical one would be every other day you fast, and then the following day you eat what you want.
Okay, Jim, just every other day you fast? I mean, that is, I mean, you know, I was raised Catholic, so I used to dread Good Friday because you're supposed to fast in between meals, and that killed me. That was like the longest day of my life. Right. And so the fact that every other day you're going to fast, wow.
But there again, if you don't like that one, you can do one where you fast 2 days a week. It's called the 5-2 plan. Okay. Or you can do the 6-1 plan. So you can eat 5 days a week normally. 2 days a week you either fast or you eat, you know, very little, up to 500 calories, or you can do that once a week. So there's, you know, you can sort of mix and match and model it to what you prefer. It's hard for me to believe that people could do the alternate day for a very long period of time, right?
Yes, I would think so.
Probably do that for a while, but I think it'd be very hard to do forever. And that's one of the problems with this, is that clearly people can do it in the short term. The question is it a long-term tool, or maybe it should be used as a short-term tool?
Like what do you mean by short-term tool? Like,
in other words, one of the ways we're particularly interested in it is after people lose weight, and by the way, we're pretty good at producing weight loss. Where we run into problems is keeping the weight off. And so one of the things that we teach people is this is a tool that when you have a rough patch during weight loss maintenance, maybe for a week you do alternate day fasting.
Okay,
while you get through the rough spot. Then you go back to the way you were. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a long-term tool. It could be a short-term tool.
Oh, so that's very, very interesting. I didn't even think of it like that. So not only could it possibly be a weight loss tool, we'll talk about what the science says, but for maintenance, because, you know, we're all, you're so on the mark there, but we're very good about losing weight. We just can't keep it up. So
that's right. There are so many ways to lose weight, and most of the time people don't keep it off. So we desperately need better tools for weight loss maintenance, more so than for weight loss.
Okay. So it's really, really interesting because a recent survey by the International Food Information Council said that about a third of young consumers are following a certain eating pattern to help them, you know, better manage the weight or lose weight. And the number one choice was this intermittent fasting. So this is something that's catching on. But you can't, I'm assuming that you can't, like, fast and then the next day you're eating like it's the Last Supper, you know, pardon another Catholic pun here, but you can't, like, gorge the next day, right? Is that?
Well, here's what's interesting. The data suggests that if you do this alternate fast day, you do eat more the day after the fast, but you don't totally make up the calories.
Okay.
So over the 2 days, you would eat less this way than on 2 regular days.
Now, why is that, Jim, Dr. Jim? Why would you eat less the second day, like, you know, after the fast day?
Good question. And if I knew that, I would be much, much smarter than I am. But it probably relates to the way our brain regulates food intake. So the day after, we're eating a lot. We actually overeat. So, our brain in the short term is telling us that we're pretty full because we're overeating, but because we fasted the day before, that excess is not a day's worth. It's less than a day's worth.
That's really, really interesting. Now, besides, what does the science say? Does the science say that people can, lose a lot of weight doing this? Where does that?
So, Joan, believe it or not, I just came from a seminar that someone gave on this topic. So I'm really smart today.
Okay. Oh, good.
And she reviewed the science, and the best science suggests that it's not any better than regular calorie restriction, but it's as good as.
Okay.
But this idea that, it's a wonderful way to lose weight, science doesn't support that. It does support you can lose weight with it, and if that's something that's easy enough for you to do, and we'll get to this, I'm sure, I don't think there's a lot of downside to that.
Right. Dr. Jim, I would think that for some people, having to make food decisions every day is like a full-time job. And
Absolutely.
Right. And so the fact that they can say, look, Tuesday, I'm not making any decisions. And I wonder if they're almost relieved by that.
I think you're exactly right. And I think the point you bring out is that people are different. So I've tried this, and you know what? It's not bad. I can do this fairly easy. I asked my wife to try it. After 2 hours of fasting, she gave up and said, there's no way I'm going to do this.
Well, because she's smarter than you. Did we not start off this whole conversation?
That goes without saying, but my point is that people are different. And for some people, it may be a relief to do this,
right.
And it may be fairly easy. For other people, it's not for them. The problem we run into is we want to go totally to this new thing, and there's not going to be one thing that works. So think of intermittent fasting as a tool, not the answer for everybody.
The only downside I could really think about would be like if you're on certain medications, like just say you have diabetes and you're on certain medications that better controlling your blood glucose levels. To be fasting, that could be a problem. So I would think before you do this, if you have any medical issues or on certain medication, probably pass intermittent fasting by your healthcare provider to make sure it's appropriate for you. What about on the fasting day, or you're eating maybe like only 25% of your typical calories? What about when you go exercise? Like, is that going to be a problem?
I don't know a lot of good research there, but my guess is no. I don't think it's going to be a problem. Again, these are short-term kinds of things, and it's kind of an interesting commentary on our society that we think of a one-day fast as this, oh my God, this is an amazing sort of thing, when probably our ancestors did this all the time, maybe not intentionally.
Right.
So I'm not worried about that. I don't think it's going to be a problem. If you were fasting for a week in a row, you begin to do it. But on one day, I don't think the exercise is going to be any problem at all.
Now, besides the potential for weight loss and weight management, which we'll get in a second, but are there other health benefits of doing this?
Yeah, that's where the science is a little unclear right now. In some studies, here, number one, when you lose weight, the benefits of weight loss are so powerful on health, on lipids, on glucose, etc., that data are a little mixed about whether alternate day fasting might be better or worse than constant calorie restriction on those factors. My reading of the gestalt of the literature is there's not really much difference. You get benefits both ways.
Okay. And lipids is the fat in the blood. So when you say to get
yes,
it decreases
exactly.
Okay. Now, so on the day that you're fasting, so you're not worried that like you're going to lose muscle mass or anything?
No.
Okay, you don't have to worry about that. Okay, good.
It doesn't happen that quickly.
Okay.
I actually don't think there's a downside. The only downside I see is that people can't stick with it.
Right.
I don't see a health downside. But again, there are some people, like my wife, who just, fasting's not for me. I can't go without eating. Okay, fine. Find another tool.
Right. Well, on Good Friday, I'm going to call your wife, and maybe she'll have sympathy for me when I'm fasting in between meals. Tell me about this time-restricted eating, because this is really
actually the
interesting.
more interesting
Right,
one. I'm
right.
glad you brought that up because I think it's far more interesting than alternate day fasting. So here's the concept of time-restricted feeding. To simply say what we're going to change is the times of day you can eat. We're not going to tell you what to eat. Now we're going to say that rather than eat all day, for example, you can only eat between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. We're not saying what you eat anything you want, but you just can't eat before 10 and you can't eat after 6. And interestingly enough, this produces a little bit of weight loss. It is not a panacea for weight loss, but in a way it's producing weight loss without calorie restriction per se, which is why I find it pretty interesting.
Now, Dr. Jim, is it because when you're limited to that time of the day, you're probably going to end up taking in less calories because a lot of people, they snack from the time dinner is finished until Jimmy Kimmel comes on, But or is it that there's something metabolically going on?
Great question, and that's what a lot of people are trying to figure out. We don't know the answer to why. It started out with animal studies, basically studies with rodents, and was pretty clear in rodents this time restriction has a big effect. Doesn't seem like humans have as much of an effect. So if you really are worried about your fat rodents, time-restricted feeding is really the way to go. For humans, it's a little bit more complex.
Right, so if we have a pet rat, we got to, feed
Pet
that rat.
Restricted feeding, it'll be very lean.
Okay, good. We hate fat rats. There we go. So what is this whole circadian rhythms? Because this is sort of plays into this time-restricted eating, right?
Yeah, it does, and it's where it makes things more complicated, but more interesting.
Right.
So circadian rhythms are the fact that you take any hormone. God, we got, a zillion hormones in our body. You take any hormone, it has a circadian pattern. So it'll be high at sometimes, lower at sometimes, and it differs during the day, and it differs for individuals. Your body's sort of whole metabolic processes change in a circadian pattern, and there's some thought that if we take that into consideration, it's this idea of personalized nutrition, right? It might help us better understand what to do for you versus your neighbor.
So the circadian rhythms is like this 24-hour rhythms in your body, right? So this it kind of is in lockstep with your everyday light and dark cycle, right? So this is the rhythms. Okay, so they're thinking that maybe the hormones are different at night than they are during the day, and that might play a part in this whole metabolism and how food is stored or how calories are stored as fat or used as fuel. And that could be really interesting. If that's the case, and if it's, so this time-restricted eating works and you don't want people munching at night, I'm wondering, should we go to the old adage that, eat breakfast like a king and lunch like a prince and dinner like a pauper?
So I think what we know is we have some really good hypotheses there. We don't have the data yet to say that's the case. So it makes sense. It's a good theory. But what we don't have is the data to show if that's right or not. Right. I think what you're going to see is that science is going to be coming out pretty soon. Okay. And so that old adage of, eat a lot early in the day and less later in the day might be true. We just don't have the science today to back it up.
Right. Okay. Good. So when that comes out, could you call me and then
you'll be first on my list.
Okay. No, I bet your wife is going to be the first.
Oh, yeah.
But then, all right, then I'll be second, and I'm having to get back on there. So that is great because I think that would be another interesting way for people to better manage, how they're eating. And when you think about it, food is fuel, and it would make more sense to put the fuel in earlier in the day than later at night when you're sitting on the couch doing nothing. So
But I'll give you an even more important one than that we do have the science for right now. So what you're saying is, does diet match metabolism? One of the things that we know for sure that has a huge impact on metabolism is my favorite behavior, which is exercise.
Oh.
So if you're an exerciser, the best diet for you is different than if you're not an exerciser.
Oh, tell me more.
So if you're an exerciser, so let's take the the favorite villain today, which is sugar, right? We're telling people to eat less and less sugar. If you take the top athletes, and I had a friend who measured food intake during the Tour de France, and these guys were consuming massive amounts of sugar. So the idea, it's not sugar per se, it's excess sugar. So if you have a metabolism where you're not exercising, you're not burning a lot of calories, yeah, you better limit fat and sugar. But if you're an exerciser where you're burning and oxidizing these things, the long and short of it, Joan, if you're exercising, you can have way more fun with your diet without getting into trouble than if you don't.
The whole idea is, okay, we're trying to get the weight off or this intermittent fast, but you're thinking that it may be even better to better manage your weight. And can you explain why is it so difficult for people to manage the weight loss?
Yeah, it's a tough one, and anybody who's tried to lose weight knows that. And, for years and years and years, we kind of blame the person. Joan, if you would just step away from the table, everything would be fine. What we know now is there's really biological, environmental processes that make it tough to keep weight off. So we actually came up with the concept of the energy gap. So if you're an overweight person going along just fine, and we measured how many calories you were burning, let's just say, for example, you're burning 3,000 calories a day, okay? Now we put you in a weight loss program. As you lose weight, you have a smaller body, which means your metabolic rate is tied to your body size. It's going to go down. You're moving a smaller body, so you're actually moving a smaller weight. So after weight loss, if we were to measure your energy expenditure again, we might find it was 2,700 calories. So you've decreased the calories you burn by 300. Now what that means is, to keep your weight off, you either have to eat 300 calories less forever or to increase your exercise by 300 calories or some combination. But that concept is you have a behavioral gap that you have to make up. And from the bad news is it seems to last forever. That never goes away. So you have to find a way to change your behavior permanently by that 300 calories.
Boy, Dr. Jim, and you couple that with, our sedentary lifestyle that, we are sitting all day long, and we don't even get up and walk to the printer. When you print out something on your computer, you remember you used to have like one printer on the floor of a building. Now every office has a printer, or every, so, and what you can do on a smartphone, that people are just sitting all the time. So if you lose the weight, you really have to be very, very conscientious of not overeating that 300 calories, that example you used.
Well, it gets worse. And again, I'm not trying to be depressive here because people can be successful. But as you lose weight, your metabolism is going down, but also the hormones that stimulate you to eat go up. So in other words, it's almost as if your body's working against you. So you require less calories, but your also brain is telling you you're hungry, okay? So that's why it's so hard to keep weight off, because you have to fight against that, and then you go down and walk the streets of Boston where you see the donuts here and the candy store here, and it's sort of, oh my gosh, how do you push back against all that?
Okay. You are depressing me.
But a lot of people do it.
Yeah.
They really do it, and they figure out a way to do it over the long term. Now, the fact of the matter is, still, very few people lose significant amounts of weight and keep it off. Lots of people lose the weight. Right. Very few keep it off, and it's very hard to do. And to help people do that, we're going to have to help them both with behavior change, but also we need to see how we can create a little bit healthier environment to make it less hard to keep the weight off.
Right. Something, you are correct. And the environment that we live in, it isn't waste friendly. And I'll give you an example here. Here on Boston University. Boston University is a very long campus. It's 1.5 miles from the start to all the way to the end point. And Dr. Jim, you tell me, how many Starbucks do you think are on this campus that is 1.5 miles?
Oh my gosh, 5.
6, Dr. Jim. 6. Now,
Well, you don't want to have to walk more than a block to get your coffee and croissant.
That's right. There, God forbid if you have too many steps on your
Joan,
Fitbit.
turn that around. And if I were picking places where you say, "Oh my God, the environment, that's so hard to change," a college campus could be. It's doable.
Right.
If the students really wanted to empower themselves and say, you know what, we demand a healthy campus. College campuses could be great healthy places. So you guys should figure out how to change that environment.
Well, to our defense, I have to tell you, here at Boston University, we have a magnificent exercise fit rec that the students absolutely love, and a great food. In the dining hall, it's like really, really healthy food, and that's thanks to my registered dietitian, nutritionist friends who set that up. So we do a lot, and the fact that it's such a long campus, you're getting a lot of steps in just to get from class to class. So that's really good. But
see, I think that's great, and I think college campuses could be these healthy environments.
Right.
And I think it'd be really fun if the students got engaged in saying, you still want to have fun. I mean, come on. You go to college to have fun, right? Not to learn. I'm just kidding. But you want it to be a fun place, but a healthy place doesn't have to be a non-fun place, just like every dietitian knows that healthy food can taste good.
Right.
And I would love to see college campuses sort of be out there saying, we're going to be these little conclaves of healthy environments.
Well, I have to tell you, though, you said that not very many people can keep the weight off, but, Dr. Jim, I know some people that have, and it's called the National Weight Control Registry, and you created this. So why don't you tell everybody about this, because this is really fascinating.
So this is where we've done the depressing part. This is the optimistic part coming out, just to clue in your listeners. So if you're like crying in the towel thing, we're actually going to get positive here at the end. So with my colleague Rena Wing and I, Rena is a very famous, wonderful behavioral psychologist. Back in 1993, we started collecting people who had succeeded in weight loss. We said, okay, the sense was then, well, nobody succeeds. People lose weight. Nobody can keep it off. And, we said, well, is that true? How are we going to know that? Well, let's go out and see if there are people out there that have lost weight. So we started a registry of people that had lost at least 30 pounds and had kept it off for at least a year. This was in 1993. So we've been doing it ever since. We're following over 10,000 people, okay? Now, I don't know what the denominator is. Maybe these are the only 10,000 that have been successful out there. We don't know how many, but we know that there are at least 10,000 out there that have been successful. And these people have been wildly successful. The average weight loss is 70 pounds.
No
kept
kidding.
Off for about 6 years.
Wow.
Okay? These people are successful. Now, they're the exception, not the rule. And so what we've tried to do is learn from those people. Now, the first thing we learned, my goal, Joan, here was to figure out how they lost weight, write a diet book, and make $1 gazillion and retire to Hawaii. Well, it didn't work out.
Yeah, okay.
Didn't work out because there was no similarity in how they lost weight.
No kidding.
They used every diet known to man.
So any diet that cuts calories, then, you're telling me is going to work?
Gee, is that not a shocker? Any diet that cuts calories works.
Oh,
but what
stop!
we
I'm
found,
blushing.
where we started seeing the similarities, and it was in how they're keeping it off.
Okay.
And the first thing we learned is weight loss is different than weight loss maintenance.
Okay. So about what you just told us before. Okay.
Yeah. So a lot of people go into weight loss, they go on a diet, and they say, I'm going to go on this diet forever. Well, guess what? You can't. You get hungry.
Right.
So what happened is we see a number of similarities in how these people are keeping weight off, and I'll list some of them. Interestingly enough, in today's era, we've sort of we've decided fat's good rather than bad. These people actually eat a pretty low-fat diet, so they still say they're watching fat. They report about 26% fat, and I think they underestimate. So probably under 30%, which is a fairly low-fat diet.
Right. And just so fat has more calories per bite than carbohydrates or protein. So they're cutting calories. It sounds like by that method.
And
Okay.
This is not rocket science.
Right.
It actually makes sense. But that's the other thing is they pay attention to calories.
Right.
Back in the 70s and 80s when we were pushing low fat, people would pay attention to fat, but then they would eat the whole box of low-fat cookies.
Right.
So they weren't paying attention to calories.
Sure.
These people pay attention to fat and calories.
Okay, good.
They self-monitor, which means they weigh themselves. A lot of them keep food and physical activity records. Again, they're paying attention to their own behavior. Most people out in the world eating, you don't pay attention to what you eat, which is why if I ask you what you ate yesterday, people aren't very good at knowing that. And what these people do is consciously, periodically pay attention to what they eat.
See, that's good. So they're always watching. They're always
watching.
Right.
And then they use the scale. We ask people. There's some people out there that say, "Oh, lose weight, throw away the scale, don't worry about it." These people say, "Well, if I don't have the scale, how do I know if I'm gaining weight?"
Right.
So the scale is an early warning system.
Right.
Now, what we tell people is, guess what? The scale doesn't control you. Do not let the scale control you. It's simply a tool.
Right.
Don't worry. I've stayed away from the scale for a week, but I'm afraid. No, it's simply a tool that tells you when you need to pay attention.
Right. And what about their physical activity? Are they...
I'm glad you brought that up because I think that is the most important thing they do. 91% of these people do a lot of physical activity, which means 9% don't. So, if you're saying, oh my gosh, I want to lose weight and not exercise, you might be in the 9%, but your chances are much better at being in the 91 that exercises. On average, they're reporting about an hour a day of exercise.
No kidding.
And so people say, well, is that a lot or a little? 70 pounds of weight loss. Can you give me an hour a day?
Yeah.
Where am I going to find time? Oh, my gosh, I might have to cut my television watching from 5 hours to 4.
Oh, boy, there you go. Ugh.
So that's a big one.
Right.
And most of my research has led me to believe that without that significant and permanent increase in physical activity, your chances of keeping weight off are very low.
Dr. Jim, that 1 hour, do we have to do? We don't have to do it
No,
all.
you can break it up.
Okay, good.
But you can't do it all with just walking around. You really need to plan some exercise into your day every day.
Right.
And we're creatures of habit.
Right.
And what we tell people, you got to plan ahead. If you get up and say, oh, my gosh, well, I exercised today, you're a toast. You're going to lose. Yeah. You've got to know the night before what you're going to do the next day.
Right. So you got to pack everything up and get up and do it. Okay.
Yes.
And just get it over with and you have to do it.
Yes.
So, it sounds like this intermittent fasting, it could work for some people. It could work for maintenance. So this is good. I was expecting you to say no. But it may work.
So the problem is we go all in on intermittent fasting. It's the answer. No, it's not the answer. It's a tool that can be used. I don't have any problem. If those kids on campus are using intermittent fasting, I don't have a problem with it. But I will tell you, they're unlikely to be able to sustain this forever. They've got to be physically active. They've got to do some other things on top of that. But I'm not concerned about the downside. I just don't think this alone is the answer. It's a tool, not the answer.
Okay. But it sounds like that we have to make some, changes in our behaviors, getting up and moving and exercising, maybe washing up portions and counting and being more mindful of what's going on in our diet.
That's exactly right, Joan.
All right. Well, Dr. Jim, thank you so much for being on Spot On. And I think we ended on a happier note, don't you think?
Yeah, you depress people at first, but you need to get them optimistic at the end because I think we have to figure this out. It's not if we figure it out. the consequences of not figuring out aren't great. We've got to solve this problem. And at the end of the day, it's not just that people are going to be leaner, they're going to be happier.
Right. I totally agree. Because they're going to be happy about the fuel that they're putting in their body,
Yes.
and they're going to be happy about moving their body.
Yes.
So, my dear, thank you so much for being on Spot On and sharing your wisdom with us.
It was such a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you for listening to Spot On. I am your host, Dr. Joan Salge Blake. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Joan Salge Blake. Please subscribe to Spot On through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere you find your podcasts. Also, visit our Facebook page to join the conversation and tell us what you'd like to hear in future episodes. And oh, by the way, could you ask 5 of your friends or family members to download Spot On and subscribe to it? Do I ask a lot from you?